Next slide. All right, yesterday had the opportunity to meet with State Senator Marco Elias, the chair of the Transportation Committee. So the Senate Transportation Committee met here in the city of Bremerton, and I attended that meeting and then met with Senator Elias afterwards and got together, and you can see what I highlighted, and he was well dialed in, so he's well informed. The Gorst Corridor remains a very, very high priority for our region. So Bremerton is, even though this is a multi-jurisdiction business community effort, Bremerton is taking the lead on this. And so we maintain that as the highest regional priority in our community. The Warren Avenue Bridge is now currently our highest city priority. So we also touched bases on the importance of moving forward together. We're going to work collaboratively with Washington State Department of Transportation. The senator realizes the importance of this project to our community, and we are committed to delivering a project for our citizens. And the last one is just one of our long examples of good partnerships with neighboring organizations, Kitsap Transit. We had to make sure we got the plug in to keep funding the supplemental ferry run, fast ferry run, while Washington State Ferries rebuilds their system. So those are all looking good. There are some tremendous budget constraints for the state. So they are going to have to work through that. And all of us, whether we believe we are or not, we are partners in this effort. So the goal is to get projects done. And that's what we'll be working to do. All right, next slide. The tree giveaway program. For those who love our tree canopy in the city of Bremerton, and I think we have an outstanding tree canopy. It's just wonderful. This is our annual event we do. This started in 2018. You can see we have 100 trees. Our annual cost for 100 trees is $6,000. There's a couple that have been picked out this year. And the pickup is September 21st, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Oyster Bay Public Works and Utilities campus. So this program and this feature actually is available for our residents with City of Bremerton utilities accounts. So I hope some folks take advantage of this, and I'd love to hear from anybody that does. Next slide. Sinclair Inlet Cleanup. This one I would encourage you to get involved in. Council, if you can get to your networks, it's a worthwhile effort. You can look up there the different areas that you can focus on, especially for City of Bremerton residents. You know, you get out on Navy Yard Highway, that's an experience. Go ahead and give it a try and work that area out there. You'll do a lot of good for our community. And you'll see some interesting stuff out there. It isn't a place somebody picks to go for a regular stroll on a Saturday afternoon. So, but if you get out there, it is a unique place to go, and you'll do a lot of good. And the rest of these spots are good also. Evergreen, Lions, Bachman Park, all of those could use some help. Volunteers must be between 13 and 18 will need a guardian. All right, next slide. I wanted to highlight this one for you. It's a letter we received. And it was from a resident, but this easily could have been from a fisherman, a boater, a family just taking their children to the park. I just wanted to let you know how appreciative my family and friends are for your efforts to clean up Kitsap Lake. We've lived on the lake for a number of years and have seen how dirty it can get. This summer, we've seen crystal clear water almost every morning. It's been fantastic. Thanks for all the hard work in getting the Foslock treatments, weed removal, and sticking to it. It's helped tremendously. We really look forward to the new Kitsap Lake Park as well. That looks like it's right around the corner. Signed, a Kitsap Lake homeowner. So I thought I'd share that with you, Council. We all are in this together. And this wouldn't be happening if we weren't together on this effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for ending on good news with that positive letter. Always nice to hear good feedback. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Chamberlain. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. A, claims and check register. Approval of the following checks and electronic fund transfers. 1, check numbers 408294 through 408444 and EFT numbers V41753 through V41778 and V41781 through V41874 in the grand total amount of $3,530,366.54. 2, regular payroll for pay period ending August 31st, 2024, in the amount of $1,121,140.96. 3, regular payroll payout for pay period ending August 31st, 2024, in the amount of $11,812.02. 4, retiree payroll for pay period ending August 31st, 2024, in the amount of $30,397.40. B, minutes of meeting September 4th, 2024. C, minutes of study session September 11th, 2024. D, acceptance of fiscal year 2023 state and local cybersecurity grant. E, interagency memorandum of an understanding for license plate scanning between Washington State Patrol and Bremerton Police Department. F, interlocal agreement with Kitsap County for volunteer litter cleanup services. G, exercise of option by Bremerton Community Theater, Inc. to extend lease. H, public works agreement with Pape & Sons Construction, Inc. for the Lewis Avenue Sewer Replacement Project. I, acceptance of a Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant for Central Bremerton Forest Main Replacement Project. J, ordinance number 5498 to amend BMC section 3.36.020 under chapter 3.36 entitled Contingency Reserve Fund to allow use of general fund real property sale proceeds for affordable housing. K, consent for Brian Hauschel to serve additional time as interim Parks and Recreation Director. L, ordinance number 5499 to amend BMC section 10.10.070 entitled Parking Violations. And M, claims and check register correction from City Council meeting on September 4th, 2024. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Clerk Hoover. Okay, we have a number of items on our consent agenda today. And so this is an opportunity for the public to speak on some of the items on specifically the consent agenda, items 4A through 4M. We don't have any comments accepted via Zoom tonight. And we ask if you do have a comment for any of the public recognition for consent agenda, for public recognition in general, or for the other items on our agenda today, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. It sounds like we don't have, normally we have projected onto our screen a timer system, but we won't have that available today. So we'll be just looking diligently at our light system here, which is a green light means you have 3 minutes. Yellow means you have 30 seconds. Red means I have to cut you off and stop you to give everybody the same amount of time. So I'll be diligently looking at that and try to provide you a 30-second warning as well. So you'll hear me whisper 30 seconds. It doesn't mean to stop, just keep going. You got 30 more seconds, use up your time. So at this point in time, does any member of the public wish to comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? If you do, we ask that you come to the microphone and speak your name for public record. Okay, going once, going twice, okay. All right.
Point of order, Council President, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I think we do take comments on Zoom for consent agenda. I just wanted to triple check in case there were any.
Do we accept public comment via Zoom for the Oh, apologies. Thank you for that correction. So I'll make sure that it's noted next time I read the details. Thank you for that. But there is none. Thank you. But thank you, Councilor Coughlin. That's wonderful. For the reminder. Okay, so nothing online, nothing in person. I'll go to council for a motion. Okay,
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Councilmember Frye,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Robolowski,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next up is public recognition. As noted on the agenda, public recognition provides an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda. This is generally not a Q&A time. I know it feels frustrating to come in if you have questions, you want the answers right away, but this isn't a time for us to provide that. We do always try to respond to all of our emails. So we encourage you to follow up with questions to our emails, connect directly with us, or you can email us at city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.us. And again, and the same as was briefly announced earlier, there will be no public comments for public recognition via Zoom. And there was nobody that made prior arrangements. It is still election season, so please refrain from any endorsements or comments about candidates or ballot measures. And with that, I will open up public recognition.
Hi, good evening, you guys. I'm Jocelyn. I'm with the Bremerton Prayer Walk. I also do work with Rock the Block, and I had sent an email in because we were down on the block this weekend, and I was really quite appalled and heartbroken, not only for the people that were down there on the street, but also for the officials that were tasked with enforcing commands. And I don't know who they came from or whatever, but you could see that there was a lot of heartbreak in their eyes, that there was a lot of, when I questioned what we could do, and that the situation is that individuals who had nowhere to go, including the Salvation Army, were told that they weren't even allowed to have stuff on the street. And that's not within the confines of the anti-camping ordinance. And yet it was being enforced like that down there. And these individuals were crying. They were begging for help. They were asking for help. They were looking to us to say, what's going on? Why is this happening? And so I understand where the mayor's coming from in his report, that he's really excited that it looks better, but it's at the expense of people. And I really don't think that that's something that Bremerton should be known for, is that our visual appeal and our aesthetics here in the city of Bremerton is at the expense of individuals. And I do believe that we're better than that. We have the police right now. They're enforcing this anti-camping ordinance, and it's pushing people out. They're going into other places in the community. They're creating havoc in the other places in the community. And that's not something we want. We have the ability to read. We were down there and we were getting people off the streets even this weekend. And so it is such a hard when the targeted enforcement of this, it's a targeted enforcement of just a select group of people. It is not being equally enforced across the board with individuals carrying stuff in public. It's only being enforced, and it's being enforced quite radically and quite like on the hour. They're going down there and they're enforcing this statute and throwing people in jail and causing issues. And so I would really, really, really encourage the city council to make it known that the anti-camping ordinance is there and there's nothing we can do about it till it's legally challenged. And I understand that. But when there are no resources available and there are no solutions for these individuals at all, the option is not go to jail. I mean, that is making it illegal to just exist here in the city of Bremerton, and we're better than that.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak during public recognition?
camera's not working today. Hi, I'm Naomi Levine. I wasn't going to comment today because I'm really tired, but I've been thinking about this all week for the last actually several weeks. As you all know, in my spare time, I spend a lot of time thinking about bathrooms and public infrastructure. It is my professional pursuit. It is my personal hobby. It is just an all-around thing that I do. Something that I hear a lot in my own line of work and in the conversations that I'm part of in various spaces about why we shouldn't have more public bathrooms. The argument tends to be that people are going to use drugs in the bathroom. And a fear of people using drugs in the bathroom is not a cause to prohibit people from having bathrooms. It's a call to partner with people who are doing something about drug use and substance use disorders in the community. There's no need to punish everybody with no bathrooms simply because you're afraid of people doing drugs in the bathroom. If you remove the bathrooms, people will do drugs somewhere else until you provide them with adequate help for a substance use disorder. Until you get people adequate mental and behavioral health, they'll use the bathroom as a safe space. Removing the bathroom does not remove the problem behavior. It does not solve complaints that I've heard from the chief of police. It does not solve concerns I've heard from concerned citizens. It doesn't solve that problem. If you're interested in solving the problem of substance use disorder in our community, I recommend talking to Kitsap Public Health District. They have entire teams of people who do that work. You should talk to them about your concerns and they will help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Angela, resident here of Bremerton. So I'm going to piggyback on Rock the Block. I don't support the agency or everything else. I'm here as a
Can you come
person.
closer to the mic? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm not going to support Rock the Block. Please don't take this offensively. I've done a lot of things here in Bremerton by myself. What I'm sitting to say is the big piggyback here is yes, the bathrooms. There's no really any place for anybody to use the bathroom. I have a hard time even just myself trying to find a public bathroom so I can urinate. Yes, the problem is we do have people urinating all over the city. I do smell it. Unfortunately, where else are they supposed to go? If I'm camping, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to find a tree and I'm going to use the bathroom. And that's me as a homeless person before. But I'm going to do it to the fact that nobody sees me. At the same time, we have to find a solution to find where people can go. Kids at Rescue Mission used to have a day center. There's nowhere for anybody to go. And yeah, the streets, I do feel bad for individuals on the streets because even I look at them and like, where do they go? Libraries, there's not much for people to do. I'll get bored sitting at the library all day long. The kids get bored sitting at the library. Kids get bored sitting at Coffee Oasis. I don't know of a solution. I have advocated for many solutions. We've got Pendleton. We need more Pendletons or something else of that environment. We sit and house people, but we've only got a certain amount of agencies for housing. Agape's got housing. West Sound, I don't know if they got housing, but at the same time, we're going to offer services. These agencies need to offer housing and permanent solutions for housing that not just bringing people off the streets. They also reserve the right to have affordable and suitable housing for them and their kids. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public wish to speak during public recognition? Okay. I will now close public recognition and move on to Item 6B.
General business item 6B, presentation on 2024 comprehensive planned use element. Presenter tonight is Planning Manager Garrett Jackson.
All right, thank you, council. Before we get going, I just wanted to mention to the council and members of the public, we do have an updated version of this presentation available online in the council packet. So I believe there's some paper copies that are circulated in the audience. Feel free to go online to bremerton2044.com where you can see the most updated version. We have a link there to the most updated version of this packet. So that being said, we are here to talk about the land use element. The purpose of this conversation is for the city council to gather public comment and provide staff with feedback on the land use element. Okay. At first, we'll just review the basic comprehensive plan process. So to make sure that everybody in the audience is on the same page about what this process looks like, before moving into the land use element, where we'll discuss the vision, growth strategy, housing equity issues, and talk about the draft environmental impact statement alternatives, and then before moving into questions from council. Okay, moving on to that review. Just the most basic question, what is a comprehensive plan? For everybody at home, the comprehensive plan is essentially the 20-year development plan for the city. It deals with everything from housing to the environment, transportation, land use, city services, and other issues. So now is the best time to speak up on how you want your city to develop in the future. Our local comprehensive plan needs to conform with several layers of jurisdictional authority, starting with Washington State's Growth Management Act. And then secondly, we plan regionally with a group called the Puget Sound Regional Council, and that's made up of Kitsap, Pierce, Snohomish, and King counties. We all plan regionally under a guiding document called Vision 2050. So our comprehensive plan needs to conform to the goals and policies of Vision 2050. And also locally, the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council is made up of all jurisdictions within Kitsap County, and our comprehensive plan needs to conform to the county-wide planning policies that all jurisdictions in Kitsap have agreed to follow. The population for the city is estimated to grow to just under 64,000 people by the year 2044, and just over 58,000 jobs. That represents an increase from 2020 numbers of 46% for population and 32% for jobs. So our comprehensive plan needs to demonstrate that we can absorb those forecasted populations. The city of Bremerton is regionally significant. The Puget Sound Regional Council has designated the city as a metropolitan city. So we are supposed to be on par with other cities, large cities in the Puget Sound like Bellevue, Seattle, Tacoma, and Everett. We have two regionally identified areas for growth absorption, that being a manufacturing industrial center over by the Bremerton Airport. It's supposed to have a capacity to absorb as many as 10,000 jobs in the future, and the downtown regional center. So our partners at PSRC are counting on the city of Bremerton to do their fair share by absorbing jobs and population at these regional centers. Just a quick review of the City Council's review of the comprehensive plan thus far. We reviewed the vision, goals, and policies, as well as the general growth strategy for the city at the February 7th City Council meeting. And then more recently, the City Council looked at an updated comprehensive plan schedule at the August 28th meeting. Those vision, goals, and policies and that growth strategy are all available in depth at bremerton2044.com. At last week's study session, this is an item that's not in the paper packet in the audience. At the study session, the City Council asked for more of an infographic type of schedule for what they can expect for the comprehensive plan process going forward. So that is included in the packet. The blue items are city council dates, yellow are SEPA, and white are significant planning commission meetings that are upcoming. So anyone has any questions, feel free to email me, but this is in the packet and online. Thank you. And moving on to the land use element. The vision for the land use element is that Bremerton is a metropolitan city that provides for economic vitality and diverse lifestyles through a broad variety of jobs, housing, and strategically located commercial and recreational opportunities. Now, once again, the vision, goals, and policies are all available on bremerton2044.com. We're not going to go into all of those, but each element has vision, goals, and policies, all of those available on our webpage. And speaking of our webpage, if you go to bremerton44.com, we have a video that explains more in depth what our growth strategy is for the next 20 years to absorb that population and jobs. We're not going to go into minute detail tonight, but that presentation provides more of an in-depth overview of the growth strategy. That being said, the primary focus of our growth strategy is to increase density and height in the downtown sub-area plan to a maximum 80-foot height limit with no maximum density. The general commercial zone and high density residential zone are proposed to have a height increase to 65 feet. The Bay Vista sub-area plan village commercial zone within that sub-area plan is proposed to allow for mixed use buildings. And the medium density residential zone, a height increase from 35 feet to 45 feet. You can see here on this map illustrated up here on the screen, anything that has some color attributed to it are areas where where development standard is proposed to increase. So there's a legend there in the bottom left-hand corner indicating what zone that is and what the increase or change might be. You'll also see these dashed circles in various areas throughout the city. And those are to indicate in the future where high-capacity transit stations might be located. That's a quarter-mile arc for those smaller circles and a half-mile arc from the ferry terminal station. We'll have specific development standards that are required through PSRC and the state for those station areas as they develop in the future. The City Council at the study session also asked for some mapping showing what the existing heights are. So the next next three slides show the existing zoning maps. And then you'll see on the zoning designation legend, there's in red the existing maximum height. Now, sometimes there's a sub-area plan or some conditional use permits that might have differing maximum heights. So if you ever see two items there, that's why. Once again, this is just another map showing the existing heights. And there's one more. These are all going to be, once again, available online if you'd like to look at these more in depth. And these are the last two maps showing the remainder of the city. There isn't a height provided for the resource zones like the watershed or city utility land. And the height in the Puget Sound Industrial Center is market driven. So once again, getting back to that downtown regional center, because it is the focus of our comprehensive plan update for absorbing jobs and population increases. You'll see the proposed map here on the right, where the large pink zone is an aggregation of several existing zones, where the height limit would be increased to a maximum of 80 feet. You'll see the blue dashed line on the far right, which indicates the waterfront overlay. And as properties would develop along this stretch in the future, they would be required to extend the shoreline urban trail that currently goes from the Bremerton Marina up to about 5th Street. As properties develop, they would be required to extend that urban trail so that people can maintain that access to the shoreline over time as these properties develop. Why are we focusing development downtown? And once again, it is our responsibility per the Puget Sound Regional Council for the Downtown Regional Center to absorb growth in the future. As quoted from Vision 2050, metro growth centers are the densest and most connected places in the region and are expected to accommodate higher levels of growth. The Joint Compatibility Transportation Plan, that's a joint plan between the Navy and the city of Bremerton, also identifies future actions that we can take to quell traffic issues in the city as increasing the density in downtown Bremerton through land use changes. This would also add consistency with other centers within the city. So centers are places that growth is more intense in the city. And we currently have the Wheaton-Riddell District Center, Wheaton-Sheridan District Center, Eastside Village, now named Harrison Heights sub-area plan. That's a correction I need to make. And the Charleston District Center. Now, each one of these centers currently has a maximum height of 80 feet and no maximum density. Our downtown regional center should at least have standards that are that permissive. Also, the Kitsap Transit Future High Capacity Transit. So high capacity transit is identified in Kitsap Transit's long range planning documents, and the website there is linked just below there. And high capacity transit is planned from the downtown Marina station up to Silverdale, where you'd be essentially guaranteed a bus to arrive at your bus stop once every 15 minutes or less. And with that, investment in infrastructure is expected to have density and development standards to encourage housing and growth around those nodes. If you're looking for a full draft of the downtown sub-area plan, that's also available on bremerton2484.com. So another large piece for our comprehensive plan update is for housing equity issues. And that is why in the low density residential zone and medium density residential zone, we are proposing to include multifamily as an allowed use. Now, that couldn't build any higher than, say, a single family home that is allowed that is allowed in that zone, but you could allow for that use. And the reasons behind that are that it's currently already allowed in our urban growth areas. So these are areas that are identified to be annexed by the city in the future that are currently under the jurisdiction of Kitsap County. And Kitsap County currently allows for multifamily as an allowed use in those areas. It makes sense that the city of Bremerton would be at least as urban as the areas that we will annex in the future. The Washington State Department of Commerce has some guidance over some new newish state legislation for HB 1220, where they identify housing needs that need to be addressed in our comprehensive plan. It used to be that we only had to plan for a number of housing. Now the city of Bremerton needs to plan for housing for each income level. And so the Department of Commerce has indicated that low-rise multifamily structures of 2 to 3 floors satisfies those income band levels for area media income from 0 to 80%, as indicated on the chart above. Also good to understand that the existing population of Bremerton, over half of the city of Bremerton currently rents their homes. And so to artificially decrease the areas where rental housing, multifamily housing is allowed is then making it harder on the majority of our citizens. So by allowing multifamily in all residential areas, you're increasing the number of potential rental units that can be used throughout the city. There is environmental benefits to more compact development. Single family development takes up more space. If you have a single family home in a large plat, then that takes up more area than a more compact multifamily building that can be aggregated into one single structure. If anyone is interested, there's also links to what are the root causes of homelessness. when it comes to land use regulation. There's a gentleman from the University of Washington, Greg Colburn. We have a video on Bremerton2044.com. It's only 8 minutes. I recommend everybody watch it, where it talks about these kind of artificial barriers that are made to housing, whether that's height or density, that causes a decrease in the supply of housing, which then creates more homelessness. He places that argument much more eloquently than I do. I recommend looking at that video. Once again, Bremerton44.com. Moving on to the draft environmental impact statement, DEIS alternatives. So in October, the city will be releasing the DEIS in order to study 3 alternatives to be considered, which are shown here on this gigantic table. So there are 3 alternatives. The first alternative are existing conditions. So, excuse me, the amount of housing that we can expect from our current zoning code. And if you follow that alternative 1 down to the very bottom, you can see in red that we would expect a deficit of housing from our current zoning code. And that alternative 2 and 3, while very similar, would have a surplus of housing under our planned land use changes. So to be released concurrently with the DEIS will be these council district digests, where it will show members of the public by city council district what changes are proposed for your individual district by alternative. So each alternative 1, 2, and 3 will have separate mapping and explanations on what may change under these alternatives. And we understand that the appendices of the land use element might not be as reader friendly. And so this document will come out for the public to better understand what changes are proposed with this comprehensive plan update. And we're available for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. And the counselors, we had an opportunity to check in with you at our study session. And thank you for the added elements that you included in this presentation. The legend and the timeline were very helpful. Thank you. So at this time, this is an opportunity for the public to make comments on this proposed comprehensive plan land use element. So does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Also, you may ask questions. This is a Q&A opportunity with Mr. Jackson. Good.
I've got a question. I was just looking at one of those maps of the downtown area, and there was a region I didn't quite understand. It was south of 4th Street downtown. I think right now there's a lot of just paid parking lots right there. So I'd appreciate some clarity on what that is planned for.
Mr. Jackson, do you have a concept of what that space is? And I'm sorry, I should have said, or should have reminded folks, please state your name for public record. Come on up, just for public record.
My name's Alton Bradford.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, do you know which area he's speaking about? And was there a map, Alton, that referred to?
I'm putting Dave on the spot. And he's going to pull up that map. Might just take a minute.
No problem.
So on 4th Street, there's some parking lots, and you're wondering what they're going to be used for? 4th Street.
I think it was that employment zone in the gray, kind of to the west and south of the blue downtown.
Okay. Yeah, the employment district is an area. It's just like at the big pink zone. There we go. So that gray area, that's what you're asking. Okay, so the intent of that zone is to allow some more light industrial uses. So that was set up some time ago with the original downtown sub-area plan. And in order to support the Navy's uses, really, that there's so much work that needs to be accomplished off-site for the Navy that having a zone that's very close could be conducive to having to travel less, have your workers live there potentially. A lot of other uses are allowed in that zone, but that light industrial being one of them. That has a height limit of 80 feet currently. And for reasons of a sight distance into the Naval Yard, it's very important that that zone remain distinct from the larger blue zone, which has a market-driven height. The Navy is very sensitive to the height of structures for potentially obvious reasons. And so that's the purpose of it. Does that answer your question? Excellent. Oh, I have to get a plug-in. If anybody wants a sticker that lets you know how to comment on the comprehensive plan, I have plenty of those.
Who doesn't love a sticker? Hey, see Mr. Jackson for your sticker. I've got 2 of them myself. Does any other member of the public wish to ask a question or comment on this item? Okay.
Recording stopped.
I think we'll wait for a moment before I move on to the next item.
Recording in progress.
I don't need to gavel us back in, right? We're still, okay, right on. So I'll go ahead and close item 6B and go to item 6A. Clerk Hoover.
Item 6A, Diversity and Community Engagement Manager Job Description. Our presenters tonight are City Attorney Fennell and Human Resources Manager Charlotte Nelson.
Good evening, Council. So I think tonight we're here just to go over the.
Hold on just one moment. Do we hear her through the mic?
I can hear me.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah. So we're here tonight to discuss the draft DEI job description and hopefully get it loaded in.
And if you look in the packet, the job description that was discussed at study session last time was included. It also includes in red the additional language regarding meetings as directed by the mayor. So this is what was requested at the last study session. Additional materials, certainly were provided earlier at the study session in August, but this is what the council asked us to bring forward for consideration tonight.
Okay, so that was the presentation, correct? So it's in the packet. We've talked about it at study session, so I'll go to council for a motion.
Move to approve the Diversity and Community Engagement Manager job description as presented.
Point of order as a public comment.
Oh, thank you. Apologies. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? And do we have anybody on Zoom? Are you sure we don't have anybody on Zoom? Okay. I just want to double check because I kind of thought there would be. There's no hands up. I'm going to give it a moment before we go to council for a motion to make sure that nobody in the public wants to comment online or in person. We did receive a number of letters already for public comment. No hands up. And Charlotte, if you don't mind just stepping away for just a moment, does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alden Bradford. I just wanted to say I'm disappointed it's a manager position and not a director position. And that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. That's what I figured there'd be some more comment. Thank you. Yes, please. 3 minutes for Judge Flood.
Good evening, City Council members. As I previously made comment at last week's meeting, I did send an email. It wasn't quite a letter, but I just wanted to highlight that in addition to the comments that I previously made, a good and a distinction that is often made between directors and managers is often managers as middle line supervisors often will say that it's a decision that's above their pay grade, that they can't make that decision. When we looked at directors, we're looking solely at the organization as a whole. So a director will look at the full city of Bremerton, where managers are kind of limited to their view of things. And at a director's level, that will allow for that individual to go in and work with other departments and make recommendations and not feel restricted. I again believe that the city council should be considering and looking at both what it would be for a manager and what it would be for a director. And the intent of all the number of hours that were spent on setting aside time to talk with managers and directors and employees for the city of Bremerton and looking at the recommendations that were there and actually adopting the work that was presented to us as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone, okay, got a hand? Can you, and for the record, folks on Zoom, can you please state your name for the record? And we have next up.
Yes, my name's Nancy Lorber. I'm a little late to the conversation, but I just had a question. How many people are in the department that the manager would be overseeing?
And Ms. Lorber, unfortunately, this is not a Q&A time for us.
Okay. I guess I would just say then I would support a director if there were, 5 or 6 people in the department that would need that sort of supervision. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, I see that. Okay, if there's no other, nope, okay. I'll go ahead and close public comment on this item and we'll return back to council for a motion. Vice President Mockler.
Thanks. Okay, once more with feeling. Sorry, I got lost in the public comment. Move to approve the Diversity and Community Engagement Manager job description as presented.
One second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. So council, we are open for discussion. Vice President Mockler.
This is imperfect. On the other hand, we approved the monies for this in November 2022, and we would really like to see, I at least very much would like to see this position filled and for the work to begin. I'd like to thank everybody who worked on it and the CMFR study. If anyone gets an opportunity to read it, really casts an interesting light. I just wanted to ask one question, which is the addition of the, 7 or 8 words, attend meetings as directed by the mayor. One of the things that we very much wanted in the study session was to make sure that when directors' meetings are held, that the DEI manager, like the HR manager, is among the people who would attend these meetings if it's in any way relevant to their job. So does this language assure us of that?
Yes, that's, hear me?
This is HR Manager Charlotte Nelson.
Thank you. Yes, that's why the language was put in there.
Okay, so that's a lock. It's a mortal lock. I know that's not the technical language.
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you. I really look forward to seeing this position filled.
And I apologize. Was Counselor Coughlin the one who seconded? Okay, Counselor Coughlin, you're next.
Thank you, President Chamberlain. So I kind of want to take a step back and go back a couple years on this because I'm really proud we're at this point. It's taken a long time. So it was back in 2020 that thanks to our community speaking up, council created an ad hoc race equity advisory committee under the council. And some great work was done by that. And then since it was an ad hoc committee, we had the hard task of establishing a permanent race equity commission. And we did some really hard work on that beginning of last year and got that established by April or May. So I know those positions are still open, and I know the mayor has chosen to wait to appoint those positions until this hire is in place to lead the committee, which I understand. And but that took a lot of time. And as Councilor Mockler pointed out, we budgeted for this position for 2023 and again for 2024. And it's taken a long time to get to where we are now. And part of that is we did the CMFR study to get input and get professional guidance on this. We worked with West Sound Workforce to get professional guidance on how to hire this position. And so I really appreciate all the professional input we've had to get here. And it's taken a while, but I'm really proud that as a council, we've stuck with it and that we have really been pushing for this position. And so addressing some of the community's concerns, which I incredibly appreciate because we want to get this right. And so one that we've heard real clearly is this person independent? Will they have the authority that they need? Because what CMFR really hammered and what we've heard and what I've heard from talking to folks where this has not worked is what does not work is if you put this position and you stick it and silo it in some existing department and they can't work outside that department. And I've talked to folks who've been hired in roles like that and how frustrating it was. So I really want to hammer that this position as we're creating it, whether manager or director, it is its own independent position. It reports directly to the mayor. It's able to report to council. So that was the main thing of the CMFR study and the main thing I learned from talking to folks. And so I want to make sure that's clear that yes, this person can attend all the director meetings, can interface directly with the mayor, can report to council, and can interface directly with the community. The salary, we dived into that and looking at a lot of other jurisdictions. And again, thanks for the professional guidance on that, looking at the county, looking at other cities, other places, and looking at that data, the salary that's before us is definitely competitive. And in fact, I think above quite a number of those other organizations from what I remember seeing. So I feel confident that the salary is at a level where we'll get somebody really, really great in this role. And I understand the naming concerns and the level of importance that can appear to be placed on it. But my main concern is that we're creating a position that's going to be effective, that it's going to do what we want to do, which is to give this expertise to the city and really coordinate with the community. And when I look at the job description before us, that is what I see. And pardon me just 1 second while I pull up. I lost the exact language, but there is language in the job description about them working with our community partners, about being the interface between the city. And so this position will be out there in the community interfacing. And my hope and dream is that they are, and the job descriptions we've created, it will absolutely allow them to do this, that they are sitting in department level meetings, that they are hearing, hey, Public Works is having an open house in this project. And they're the ones to think and go, oh, that's great. But yes, and what you also need to do is go to this community that may not be typically involved. And I know the right way to engage and get that community feedback. So I just want to I just want to say I'm really proud, and I don't want to lose sight as we get to the very end here on some of these small differences. Really, I'm just so proud. It's taken years to get here, but we're finally creating this position that can do a lot of good. So wanted to put that out there, and I'll pass it back to you, President.
Do any other counselors wish to comment on this item? Yeah. We'll go to Counselor Belowski and then Counselor Goodnow.
Well, I wasn't on the council in November of 2022 when the decision was made to make this a manager position and to set aside money in the budget for that position. But I have been around long enough to see the different studies that have come in, and the one that's most critical to me is the one where we went out and asked the community what they thought the job should be and what the title should be and how much influence this person should have. And I know one person on the, I think it was a Zoom person, Zoom comment, not a Zoom person, was equating whether or not it should be a director or manager based on how many employees that they oversaw. Well, this position, as I see it, is going to be helping the over 400 employees in the city of Bremerton to do our jobs better and to engage better with our entire community, not just the folks who regularly show up at meetings and go to open houses, but get more people involved. And that's why I very much believe that this should be a director level position and not a manager position.
So, I think we talked about this at length as a group, and we really kind of went back and forth. I think a lot of us, myself especially, we understand the sentiment of a director position. But when we really started to look at what we needed the person to do, because this comes out of our a few years back starting the race equity advisory committee, and we didn't get that right. And I think this is a way that we want to get that right. So what we're looking for is really somebody who's engaging with the community and engaging with staff and us. And so I guess, you know, a little more hands-on, a little more hit the ground running, and a little less of the director level long-term vision. The piece that's completely missing here is, I think all of us, and I know that we discussed this, want the city to get to the point where there's a director. So it's not that we don't want a director. Now, in hindsight, I almost wish we just wrote both job descriptions and funded the manager and got moving with that. I know that somebody even said, like, oh, well, and maybe when we're ready for the director, maybe that manager will be the perfect person to move up, and then we'll get somebody in. So we understand the meaning behind the city having somebody at the director level. But when we looked at the things that we felt had to happen first, and not just have somebody in an office planning vision, we need somebody who's going to roll up their sleeves and start bringing people together and helping us, work within the community, see things through the right lenses, so we can make better decisions. So I think that's my main point. Everybody else had some really good points, so I didn't feel that I needed to say everything I was going to say. So I support where we're at with this, with what's presented tonight, but it was tough, and I went into the conversation at the director level, and then as we talked about what we really needed to do, I have a degree in organizational leadership, so I've studied this kind of stuff in my graduate program, and it really just felt this was the right move. So thank you.
Counselor Fry.
I couldn't agree more with council members Coughlin and Goodnow, and Anna, of course, Mockler. I'm not going to keep saying things that have already been said. You know, we want this position to succeed. I think we're excited about this position. Can't wait to see what it can do. I definitely understand where the community's coming from. After all this, the issue itself is important. It's vital. It's critical to any municipality. It's up to us to determine how that fits in our municipality, not another municipality, but in ours. And for me, one thing that hasn't been mentioned tonight, although it has been mentioned before, is what is parallel with this in the city? And one of the quietest people, and yet one of the most expert people we have, is our human resources manager. This woman is in charge of our whole human resources department. That's a lot of risk. That's, I don't even know how many people, budget, so forth and so on. There's an equity kind of in position and what it does as well. And so I see within the city, there are managers. We have an IT manager. We have other managers that are our go-to that make policy recommendations, So I truly don't see this as lacking. And I want the people for whom it is important that we call it a director. I getcha. I really do. But my head and my heart are both saying it's not the right thing to do. We don't want to overinflate something right now at this point, because that person then steps into an overinflated expectation. Let's let them succeed. Let's let them build. And this council, I know, will support, a whole department focused on this. So that's my 2 cents, President Chamberlain.
Thank you. I just have my own perspective on this, and this is, again, I always feel like I have to reiterate, this is just my personal, as Councillor Chamberlain, not President. But some of the discussion we had is what's the caliber of applicants that we'll get with a director job posting as opposed to a manager job posting. I think that could go one way or the other. It could open it up to somebody that's more capable if they're a manager and they have less experience, but they're boots on the ground and have the ability to lead and have connections to the community. A director level would bring in somebody who has a higher expectation of standards, but also a higher expectation of a budget and a department that's already established. I think that it's a difficult conversation that's what we're really left with is this going to be should this be a manager or a director? And a lot of the public comment that we've received, they want us to make this a director position. I'm on the fence about it, but even if I'm still in the minority, and I think we had a really thorough discussion last week. We had a discussion, we've had this discussion a lot, and I don't think that there's too much that I can say today to sway folks. I just want to let you know that I do feel strongly that the public has spoken and they would like to see this as a director position, and yet here we are as council with a predominant amount of folks wanting it to be a manager position. I think that either way, it's going to be great to get this rolling and get this get this posted and get this filled and have a cultural competency component in our administration for accountability. So with that, that's all the comments that I have to make. Vice President Mockler, did you have other comments? No? Okay. Okay. Councilor Coughlin.
Thank you, President. I found what I wanted to just kind of read verbatim earlier. Because again, I really do want to make sure that folks know this isn't some last second change, and that we've taken this very seriously. And I know a lot of the comments we've got, some of the top two, is they want this position to be able to create and influence policy and participate in high level decision making. And so I just want to read what is the actual job description here. There's a long list of essential duties, but there is to offer policy recommendations through an equity lens to enhance diversity and inclusion efforts. So no director or any person in the city alone can just enact, policy on their own. It either has to go through the mayor or council or a combination of both. So absolutely, this position can directly offer to mayor and council policy recommendations to enact. So they have that authority and they have that ability. And it also has to build and maintain relationships with community organizations and leaders, acting as a liaison between the city and community partners, to build and maintain relationships within the various city departments. And again, to serve as subject matter on DEI and belonging, providing leadership and guidance to city staff, the mayor and city council, and attend meetings as directed by the mayor, along with a long list of others. So just wanted to read that for the record of what's in our packet, and that's in the job description.
Thank you. Attorney Fennell, did you want to make a comment? I'm sorry that I missed you.
I know we're talking about this. I just wanted to make sure that we are all on the same page with regard to the decision that's being made and the decisions that have been made previously, particularly with regard to the pay band. The council's deciding on the job description today, which is obviously within your purview, and you've already decided on the pay band. And I just wanted to make that clear. This is going to be, if the council decides to approve the job description as it was presented tonight, that we would get to recruiting this at pay band 14, which has a rate one of $97,498.32 a year and a top pay band of $118,791.60. I just wanted to make sure that the council was clear on that. It was a decision that was made at the study session. It was not one that needed to be brought back to council because the council had actually already approved that when you approved the budget.
Thank you. And just so for clarification, we are just approving the job description as presented in the packet today. Councilors, do you have any other feedback or any other comments today? Okay, shall we vote? We shall. Let's go.
Councilmember Coughlin,
Yes.
Robolowski,
No.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mockler,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
No.
Motion carries 4 yeses, 2 nos.
Thank you. Next up, we have item 6C, Clerk Hoover. I won't read it this time.
Item 6C, resolution number 3387 to designate the 900 block of Washington Avenue, commonly referred to as Lower Washington Avenue, as a permit-only residential restricted parking zone. Presenter is Councilmember Jeff Coughlin.
All right, thank you, council. Good to be here tonight. I'm going to broach a subject that is even more divisive than our last one, which is parking. All right, so this is a resolution, and I got a couple slides here to go through the presentation. We had a great discussion at study session and really appreciated all the questions and input. This was a request from members of the community in my district that I am bringing forward to you. And so if we go to the next slide. So a little history. So Lower Washington Avenue is this really kind of geographically unique section of street in the city, in my district. You probably saw it on the map earlier as Mr. Jackson was talking about the possible zoning changes we're discussing. There's a lot of historic homes built in the early 1900s that do not have any garages or driveways, at least not that fit any sort of modern vehicle. we recently just are finishing up, as we talked about tonight, this Washington 11th project that has really transformed that street. We got the new roundabout, and it's been fantastic, except that as part of that project, a lot of parking spots were lost. So there were about 94 parking spots total along both Lower and Upper Washington across from these homes that folks could park their cars on, and for years and years and years had that parking available to them with a residential parking pass. And the project, now that it's complete, has resulted in a loss of 58 spots all along Upper Washington. And I give a lot of kudos to both the residents for speaking up, and Public Works, and the mayor and myself. I've attended meetings on how do we squeeze in as many more parking spots as possible along Lower Washington. And it looks like that upper limit is 44 spots. We were hoping for 49, but looking at some fire code, it looks like 44 is the maximum possible we can do. So there has been a reduction of almost 60% in parking spaces available there to the residents of these 34 units along Lower Washington. And why they came to me is because, they've been finding ever since the project has been finishing up here that they cannot park anywhere near their house where they used to be able to in the past. And this is mostly day and night, but especially, in the evenings when they come home from work and there is not a spot anywhere near for them. And so if we go to the next slide, just a couple pictures to refresh what we're looking at. So this is a aerial map from Google Earth before the project was complete. And you have 11th Street turning into Washington. So all along that bend on Upper Washington, there was parking all along one side and even parking on the other side. That's where those 58 spots that went away used to be. And then you see on the right-hand side, the area of Lower Washington there. And if we go to the next slide, these are some pictures that were submitted by the residents to council. And these pictures were taken around 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm told represent a fairly accurate portrayal of every single evening at the moment, just due to the parking. And I got one more slide. There you go. So you can see it's pretty full, even a car there in what is not an official parking spot, parking there at the moment. So essentially the residents are frustrated, and there is a tool. So we worked with Melinda Monroe, who is our contracts administrator and oversees, IMPark and all the parking enforcement. And if we go to the next slide, one tool that was recommended was to establish this permit-only residential restricted parking zone. So currently there is existing signage that says, like much of the city, 2-hour parking, unless you have a residential parking pass, and then you park there, more than 2 hours, as long as you're moving your car like at least once a week. And so this is, this is something I've had the whole 12 years I've been in the city as a residential parking pass, but I've lived in areas where there's plenty of parking at night, even though it's, 2-hour parking. But what's happening here is that clearly that 2-hour signage by itself is not working, that the residents cannot find the parking that they need. And so there is this section BMC 10.10.40E, which allows council to create new permit-only residential restricted parking zones. And so talking to Ms. Monroe, if we go this route, it makes it much easier for IMPark to enforce it. As it is currently, the IMPark has to visit this place multiple times a day in order to have any enforcement impact. And the reality is that IMPark is focused mostly downtown, other core areas of the city. And so it's hard for them to get out here often. If we make it residential restricted only, IMPark can just visit it once, basically, ticket folks who aren't there, and they'll get the message pretty quick that it's residential only. And if we go to the next slide, finish up here. Some excellent concerns that were raised from council is, what about visitors? What about caretakers, construction folks? So when you get a residential parking permit, you also get a visitor's pass. I've used this for friends that, come and visit and stay for a day or two, or need to stop by for a little bit. You can hand them the pass, they put it in their window, they're able to put it there. So there is a mechanism for temporary visitors like that. There's other special passes that can be applied for. This is currently is what's in place on Highland Avenue, right nearby. That's also a very constricted street that has limited parking. Funny enough, that one, Highland, actually has more existing driveways and alleyways and places to park than Lower Washington. Lower Washington really has none, just these historic homes. And kind of one last concern is, folks need to walk down there for whatever reason. You could park about 2 blocks away on 11th Street Place, Pleasant Ave, 6th Street, if someone really needed to get down there and they didn't have any business with a resident. So I'll go to last slide for questions, but again, I think you'll hear from some of the residents tonight. This is just a good tool in the toolbox to really help them have what they've historically had before this project was enacted and to address this, problem. So if there's any questions after public comment, I thought Ms. Monroe would be here tonight, or she might not be able to make it, but oh, she is. I'm sorry. Yeah, can't see you. Oh, good. So she's here to answer any questions specific to permitting or how this works.
Thank you, Councilor Coughlin. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? And again, for the record, please state your name and let's all pay attention to the lights on the dashboard.
Hi, my name is Ashley Brewer. I'm a resident and homeowner on Washington Avenue, and I'm advocating for the parking on our street to be changed to permit parking only. Over the past several years of planning, development, and implementation of the construction project on Washington Avenue, the residents have continually expressed our concerns about the impact the project will have on our parking countless times. As mentioned, due to the configuration of our street, we do not have off-street parking, and we are limited in our on-street parking availability. We have hosted meetings, written countless emails, created documents, diagrams, PowerPoint presentations showing alternatives to the city that could make parking more available in this project. And yet they chose to prioritize other things over the needs of our residents on Washington Avenue. As mentioned, this project reduced parking by over 60%, going from 94 parking spaces to 44 parking spaces now. We struggle to find a place to park when we come home from work, often due to non-resident cars taking up our already limited spots. We are a street which is greatly impacted by what are known as identifiable parking generators, which is the shipyard, downtown, and the ferry system. We have heard others suggest that 2-hour parking should be sufficient. However, as the people who are actually seeing our street daily, this is not enough. In discussion with the in-park workers, monitoring our street with 2-hour parkings is much more difficult, as mentioned, and requires more frequent monitoring that cannot be kept up. Several of our neighboring streets, as mentioned again, have the permit parking only in place, and most of them actually have driveways available. We do not. Additionally, as discussed in the comprehensive plan before, this is an area of Bremerton which will only become more dense as many of the homes on Washington Avenue are or will become multifamily homes. We are left with no other option than to request a permit parking only for our street to ensure that we, the residents, are able to park our cars when we get home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dr. Chelsea Amstews. I'm a resident on Lower Washington. There's not much facts that I can say that somebody else hasn't already said. We lost over 50% of our parking. What I can speak to a little bit more is like the emotion of the process. So there was this immediate and strong concern raised by the residents to the city's plan that we were just going to lose 50% of our parking, and we have been engaged the entire time. The project has changed hands 3 different times on the side of the city. We've always had the same message. We've always been really, really concerned. And it's like you've given us this eternal headache to put in a 10-foot sidewalk. And it just goes on forever. And I'm a mom. I've got a 1.5-year-old. I've got a 5-year-old. If I have to park like way around the block and then I have groceries, it's just like, it's really, really frustrating. And this is a problem with a solution. You have the power to make our lives easier. This would make such a difference if it was permit parking only. As stated, it would be really easy to enforce. 2-hour parking is really hard to enforce. So I just really want to be here to advocate for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we pause for just a moment? Were you giving me a signal, Mr. Sorensen? Okay, let's go to the person online. After Well, let's go now. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, my name is Lydia Vigil, and I am a current resident of the Lower Washington Avenue. As active duty military, like the increase in the problem with the decrease in parking has become extremely difficult, especially when like we're trying to talk to the council or to the city of Bremerton, and all we're getting is, oh, our relief for it is you have a permit. We're going to make it 2 hours. There's the signage. There's no real, I guess, trust on my end for what is actually going to be put in place besides the construction that's already been finished and the painting on the sidewalks that has, in my opinion, also decreased in the number of parking because it's no clearer on where the parking is and how the parking is supposed to be, because we still have people that are parking how they want to, and we still have people that are clearly not residents that are parking for extended periods of time, almost living out of their vehicles, not residents, and there's nothing being done about those vehicles. But our vehicles that are being parked for whatever time frame, like myself, I can't just like move my car every so many days unless I have someone go and move it for me because of what my job requires me to do. And the fact of, oh, we have 2 hour parking during the day, that does me no good when my hours are fluctuating throughout the day because of what my job entails. It's a major inconvenience. And another thing we've been told is, oh, we're going to give you basically a voucher that states that if there's not enough parking for the houses, seeing how we've lost 55 parking spots, oh, we'll allow for you to park in a parking garage at a discounted rate two blocks up. And that just, it really doesn't alleviate my mind on security of my car is 2 blocks away. And I've, on numerous occasions, I've had to park my car down the street away from the line of sight where my house is. And I would like to know how y'all are going to fix this. And if with the permit only, it's going to give us that option of maybe decrease the amount of people that are clearly not residents parking on our street and taking away.
Hill, thank you for your comments. Thank you. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you so much. Do we have anybody else online? Okay, thank you. Please come on up. Yes, please.
So I'm Beth Noland, and I live at 920 Washington Avenue. And when my husband and I bought our beautiful home, historic home, 4 years ago, we shared with people from the shipyard. We even shared with houseless people living in their homes. Everyone had a place to park. What's happened, and I don't need to say what everyone's already said, but we still have issues with people sleeping in their cars overnight. And we have issues of people with illegal parking passes, aren't even the right color, the dates aren't written in, that are on our street. And those are taking away the very limited new reality of parking that we now face. So you're our last hope, quite honestly. We've been in touch with Melinda, who's been very helpful in telling us what the options are. And the only option that we feel benefits us as residents is the permit parking only sign. And so we ask that you please consider that. So that's my piece. I also have Sydney Edmondson, who is not here, and Mike Munn, who owns the apartment building, right? You may have seen him at the study. He's out of town, and so he's not present today.
but he is in support of the permit-only parking. And Sydney Edmondson has written quite an extensive text message in her support. And again, with the loss of parking and the fact that we come home at night. So during the daytime, there seem to be more places during the day. But when we come home from work, or if we've gone out to dinner, or we've gone to the Admiral Theater or the Roxy and we come home, there's no place to park, as you saw on the slide that Jeff showed. And so Sydney articulates here that she said, there are many nights I arrive home late at night and have to park significantly far from my home due to unpermitted parkers taking up our limited space. It's not fair that I have to walk alone in the dark to get to my home.
30 seconds.
But unpermitted guests are able to easily leave their vehicles on Lower Washington. Please help us to make Lower Washington Avenue an accessible place to live. And that was from Sydney Edmondson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrea Curtis and I live at 922, neighbors with the ladies behind me who have been pretty amazing for the past year fighting this fight. I grew up about 4 blocks away on 9th and Cochin, and that is a permit-only area. And ironically, we had a huge garage and about 7 parking spaces. Never an issue. I would invite coworkers to park there saying, no one's ever going to give you a ticket. I've been ticketed multiple times on my own street at Washington now. And one of the things that's extremely frustrating, well, 2 things really that brought me here today. One, the taxes I pay. My home on 9th and Cochin, I paid about $1,200 a year. I now pay over $5,000 a year in city taxes, and I can't park in front of my house. It's beyond frustrating. I work at the shipyard, and in the summertime I can walk, but once fall hits, my schedule changes. And I have been assaulted in this city. I've had 2 break-ins in my home. Parking on the street isn't an option. Walking in the dark is pretty terrifying. I don't do it. So the only other option is I get a buddy to fit my schedule for all of next year, or I sell my house because I have to park my house for reasons of that. So we've also had some pretty strange things happen since they closed downtown for the homeless, the space they had by 7-Eleven. They've sort of migrated towards our area. And so it really is pretty scary on our street sometimes. It's beautiful during the day. It's not beautiful at night. And pretty soon I'm gonna start working nights. So I'd like you to consider that where my taxes are going right now. I'd really like to park in front of my house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alden. Honestly, I support this change. I think it's a good way to address the issue right now, but I think it's also important to recognize this is a symptom of a bigger problem that we're going to see more and more as we try and increase the density downtown. We're going to have to invest in more public transit if we want to be able to make people less dependent on their cars to make their day-to-day trips, if we want to fit everyone in the same space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Joe Vio. As my wife spoke to you earlier, we were at 912 Washington. We're relatively new to the area, but seeing as we got here right before this construction, it was still a headache before. But I can tell you these 2-hour parking signs, or the signs really don't do anything for those residents that live on the street before 8 a.m., and after 5 p.m. And that's when most of us get home. So that doing the permit only is definitely going to help. That's all I really can say about that. I know it's not a perfect solution, but it's something it's a step in the right direction. Seeing as, then I know we have like the 4th of July celebration, that 2-hour limit does invite people that don't live there to park on our streets to go down to the arena to watch the fireworks. I was actually had to go out, run an errand during July 4th. I came back, I had to park 7 blocks away because there was no parking, and then people were parking sideways in the street. And then I talked to the cops that were on the Manette Bridge right there if they could do anything, and they're like, no, it's in park only. So seeing as 2-hour sign is something that can be enforced in a certain time, enforced during certain times, they're not times that are beneficial to us. And outside of just getting a ticket, it's really not doing anything besides saying you can't park here, but there's really no benefit or not benefit. There's really no negative outcome besides you pay $25 or whatever, not park on the street. So the permit only, especially in Highland, is definitely, sounds like it should be something that is helping that street. Why can't you do it for our street? I know we're only going to be here for a couple of years, but we live in a multifamily home. So the people who move in next to us, which are more likely going to be Navy, would definitely benefit not just us, but people in residence for the future. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Okay. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on this side? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, we'll go to council for a motion.
I move to pass resolution number 3387, designating the 900 block of Washington Avenue, commonly referred to as Lower Washington Avenue, as a permit-only residential restricted parking zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, we're open for discussion. Councilor Fry.
You know, this is a niche area, very small area, very small strip. I think for me, it's obvious. We took parking away. We have to come up with a mitigation for that. And I really appreciate the fact that Councilmember Coughlin, who represents you, worked with staff and crafted a way to do this. We already do it in an adjacent street there on Highland. This is not something we're going to be doing. I don't want people thinking we're going to be doing this throughout the city of Bremerton. In fact, we're looking at getting rid of parking minimums. So, you know, parking is going to be a big issue for me. This has been huge for you. And the least we can do, I think, is this. So very much in support of this, Councilmember Coughlin.
Thank you, Councilor Mockler, or Vice President Mockler.
I really don't care, whatever's shorter. Hey, thank you all for your input, and I know I'm assuming that many of you also had input on the development of the roundabout project and associated, which Councilor Rebelowski, I remember that increased the cost by about $1 billion. Is that accurate? Lower Washington improvements was over $1 million. Yeah, thank you. So you can see that your voices have power. I guess I find it very odd. I come from a denser place than here, and I find it very odd that people on my block, you know, everywhere, believe that the space in front of their house is theirs. And I watch people jockey all the time. It's like, I have a guest, so I'm gonna like just figure it out so there'll be just room enough for the guest. But in fact, as code enforcement informed my neighbor who had put up no parking signs all across their frontage, the streets in front of your house do not belong to you. They are public, just as the sidewalks are public. So I find that an unpersuasive argument. I do, however, find persuasive, thank you, Councillor Coughlin, the argument that Impark is unable to enforce unless there is a residential parking permit. And I feel it the more strongly as there has been an effort on this council, spearheaded by Councillor Revelowski, to remove the vehicle from Washington Avenue's bike lane for many, many months. So I'd like to make sure that this residential parking permit, if as the former senior planner Garrett Jackson pointed out, if greater development and greater density is expected on the footprints of your homes, that it doesn't automatically come with a residential parking permit. Like if somebody builds something 80 feet high, that they are required to provide parking for those units and not to rely on this. I would like it that for the street to revert to being a public street. But at this point in time, I don't see what other solution in the real world is available. So thank you.
Councilor Revelowski.
Thank you. Well, as a long-term resident here in Bremerton, I've been here over 25 years. There never used to be designated parking spots along Washington Avenue or as you take the curve around on 11th until maybe 10 years ago. And that was as a result of shipyard workers being forced off of parking on the base due to security issues. So the mayor at the time, I think it was Mayor Lent, marked those spots. So they were never like assigned to Lower Washington. And all over the city, there are neighborhoods that have residential parking passes. And if you don't have that residential parking pass, you can only park there for 2 hours. And a lot of them are in my district, and they also have problems where they can't park on their block. They definitely can't guarantee that they can park on their street. And I wish I'd known that Highland got this special offer of basically turning a public street into a private parking lot, because really that's what's being presented with this solution. But another solution that I think may work is if they could sign it that resident parking only after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That way, any shipyard workers or other people who happen to decide to park there, or your neighbors on the next block over, maybe they, are having company, they could park there for a while, but have to be gone by 3 o'clock. And that way, Impark can certainly go through after 3 and do a run or two and ticket anybody who's still sitting there. But the residents put a huge investment down on Lower Washington, rebuilt all your sidewalks, repaved the roads. That is not standard practice for any of our residential streets in the city. Unless, if there's a sewer line that broke, then maybe they would repave the street, but it's not a private street, it's a public street. So as far as just making it 24 hours a day, resident only parking, I am not in favor of that.
Councilor Goodnow.
And I apologize for missing last Wednesday's study session. I have a couple of questions. Ms. Monroe might be the best, but Councilmember Coughlin might have this. The first question was, when we keep referencing Highland Avenue, is the entire length of Highland Avenue permit only?
Yeah, from my understanding, and I see Ms. Monroe nodding.
And Ms. Monroe is, yeah, thank you, nodding.
Okay, and is that, did that happen when Spyglass went in? Is that, does somebody know? Because
We're gonna call Ms. Monroe up for you. How does that
come
sound?
on down. Because I've had friends on Highland for years and years, and I've never even noticed that was an issue. Do you know do you know how long Highland Avenue has been permit only?
I would say at least since April of 2013.
Okay. Then the next question is, when we talk about the 900 block of Lower Washington, how many parking spaces exist right now? I know it was on a slide, but
Right now,
I can.
I think it is 44 right now.
44,
Yeah.
that's right, okay.
Yeah.
I forgot it was in there until I
Yeah.
asked the question. Okay, then the next question would be, how many potential permits would be issued for the folks who live on the 900 block of Lower Washington?
So we have 26 right now.
Permits or residents?
26 permits.
Permits.
And we are not expecting a change in that.
So we've got 26 permits and 44 spaces, and
So the change, well, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the change will be that currently our enforcement period is limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
5 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's going to be expanded to 24 hours a day.
Okay, and have we been collecting data with the LPR to try to identify where we'll call them the culprits? Like where are these folks coming from? Because even that's, I mean, I live much closer to the shipyard and we deal with this in our neighborhood. And that's the pushback, I think, from some, are going to say, like, you know, we all take a little share of shipyard folks during the day, but they're not the nighttime culprits. And I believe folks sleep in cars. I mean, I know they do, but I'm guessing there's not 20 folks or just 18 folks sleeping in cars on Lower Washington at a given point. So just trying to, I want to make sure that the solution is going to take care of the problem. And so that's where I'm getting at with those questions.
Sure. So I think it was mentioned by someone else that this area has the shipyard as a parking generator, but it's also a straight shot down to the ferry. It's also within walking distance to Minette, and the downtown core and the restaurants and just, you know, our central area. So there are a variety of other generators in this area. And since that time restriction doesn't cover nights and weekends, definitely anyone who like, oh, well, that's a really quick little hop or ride down to any one of these other areas and these other activities that are occurring during those times. So we think that that likely is, you know, an additional pressure on this area. So changing the times will have the biggest impact. Just expanding that time is going to have the biggest impact. The second area of impact is making it residential, means InPark needs to do just one run through instead of going through once and then coming back an hour later or 2 hours later or 3 hours, 4 hours later. There are options within the code right now to simply expand the hours and, you know, change to a 1 hour time frame. But that does require more enforcement. It is a residential area that's outside of their downtown core that is heavily impacted by it. You know, that is the most efficient means for InPark to enforce.
If we need to ask more and contract more of InPark, that's another solution. And so I don't like hearing this thing that it's too hard for InPark. Like they do what we tell them. If we have to tell them to do something else, so and I know you understand that completely. Okay, there was one last piece. You know, I don't want to see the opposite happen too. I don't want to see 26 cars parked on the 900 block and 18 empty spaces, right? Because now there's possible people who live just beyond, just north of the 900 block, or even somebody who used to park in a bike lane is going to need to find a parking spot. So we want to make sure, because let's also realize that a lot of those folks where we've been talking about in this Washington Avenue bike, there's no on-street parking for those folks, right? So we just want to make sure that we're not also creating other problems. I liked Councilor Rybolowski's idea of messing with the times a little bit, just making it much more stricter on resident parking. Or I don't know if that solution's not in front of us and hasn't been looked at, but I would support that. Just to be clear to the residents, I really support solving this problem. I just want to make sure we do it the right way. This is also the kind of thing that's really hard for us to step back on, right? When we go in this sort of absolute on something, it's really hard for us to come back. So as chair of parking too, I just want to, we didn't, because of this, it involved other folks, we didn't go through the parking committee with this, or the finance and parking committee. I think that's all I have for this go round. I'll stop talking.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Monroe, for your answers. Councilor Coughlin.
Thanks. No, and I appreciate all these concerns and comments. And yeah, I think it was due to quorum restrictions, we couldn't bring it to the committee. So I kind of want to ask Ms. Nolan a question, living on the street, if she's willing to come up. So although there's a certain number of permits assigned at the moment, there's about 35 residences along this road. And it's my understanding that most people have maybe one vehicle per residence. And this is where you know the community. Some people have more than one. There are some units in there that are multi-dwelling units. And so it's my understanding from our discussions that if this passes, more people would be applying for these permits, that essentially you've counted the number of residents and vehicles along that street. And my understanding is that that number it's not 20 something. It is probably above the 44 we're talking about, correct?
They're full.
Yeah.
So there is, so Bert, and I don't remember his last name, I'm sorry, but he owns those 3 pieces of property. And he had the vision years ago when he built or had purchased those homes to get that additional lot. So he has 8 spaces for his residents. So they've got some place to park. And then the other residents that aren't part of that 8 space, those might be people that are there for a shorter period of time. They have parking permits. So what we find are that we don't have an alleyway because we've got the Washington Narrows behind us. We have no other option, and we also want to say, we didn't ask for those fancy sidewalks. We're nice that they're there, but that wasn't an ask that came from our group. Our group asked for parking. So I just want to get that on the record for everybody. We didn't ask for those improvements. So I don't know if I answered your question.
So I think the question is, talking to all your neighbors along Lower Washington there, there's more than 20 something cars that belong to the residents, right? I mean, the number is close to, I'm seeing head nods, and
right.
Yeah,
and then
like that street would be filled by just the residents that are parked there. Because Councilor Goodnow's point, I think, is a good one. We don't want to see the street half empty all the time.
Because we're going to get,
right.
No, we don't want that either.
But it's my understanding there are definitely enough vehicles just from the residents alone.
Oh, in Mike's building have cars. Pardon me? He has 7 units.
7 units,
so,
apartment only.
So there's those 7. And then as you go down, I can only just speak for my home. So I can have 4 permits for my home because I have two separate, I have a full apartment downstairs and then where I live upstairs. So each residency can have 2 permits. So with the 34 residencies that are there, that includes all the multifamily homes, that would be 68 permits. that people could be applying for. So in the future, people moving into the area may not be able to have a place to park, because we just don't have enough space.
Thank you. That was the math I was looking for. So I appreciate it. And I think to answer a good concern about, well, I'll just say it now. I think absolutely great concerns that, and promises that we can't be doing this all throughout the city. And absolutely, it's a public street, so no one gets a designated space. This is my space in front of my house, and I get a park there. Not the case. It's every time you repark, it's just along the stretch of the entire road, and you have to look for a space in there, and your neighbor may be trading off day to day. But yeah, I'll just reiterate, this is a really unique geographic section of city and a really unique situation where we've had this massive construction project that resulted in such a loss of current parking. And I personally think that's different and separate than, hey, we're going to build a lot, more density in other places of the city, and we need to think about long-term parking impacts. This is kind of a really sudden change to this section, so.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sorensen, can we bring up part of his presentation, the aerial view of Washington Ave? So I used to live on 11th Street Place and two different places. I lived in, if you guys know, the historic Blue House next to Amy Burnett's old house. I think she still owns it. Maybe she sold it, I'm not sure. I lived there for a time, and most of the time I lived in the house with the big turret, the big dollhouse. Had Murphy beds in it. It was my first apartment of my own with my babies. We lived, there's the house there on the corner, 11th Street Place in Washington Ave. And I can attest that there's definitely some shady business that happens at nighttime. It's actually why my neighbors and I did a community art project on that block at nighttime. And that was back in 2005, 2006, much to the chagrin of Public Works and the city of Bremerton that actually gave me a graffiti charge for public art. But anyway, that's what I really, and I had my spot right on 11th Street Place in front of that house. It was inconvenient when I didn't have my spot in front of the place. And that house itself and that area, that corner has the benefit of having some pull-in parking, some driveways that people can pull into. I'm a little torn on this issue because I do see, and Ms. Nolan mentioned it, that there's no alleyway here that people can park on, but this is a tough issue. Highland. Now, when we're talking about Highland, we're not talking about the Highland Avenue that's near 11th Street Place, correct? That has the residential parking only. We're talking about the Spyglass side, not the Highland Avenue.
Correct. I believe it's in that picture where you see 11th Street. I believe permit only starts there and goes all the way towards downtown.
You know what? Come on up if you want to offer. We need to have it on the microphone. Yeah. So if somebody. So what I'm saying is Highland Avenue at 11th Street Place, is that residential only?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But I'll
open parking. Okay.
Or experts here. I can.
Hello, Curtis. So
I just wanted to clarify. It's not a matter of needing to park directly in front of my house. This area is already congested. It was already congested, and I had a parking pass already. I can park within 2 blocks. I can't just go down the street and park. I can try, and then if that's not available, I go around the corner, and then I go up, and if I'm lucky, I'll stay within that 2 blocks. I can only go in one direction because if I go towards the ferry, there's no parking. That's a main thoroughfare. So I can only go in the other direction, and it's tight. I have parked at the park in the little area where they used to have dumpsters, because I don't want to get up every 2 hours to move my car in the morning, right? If I'm working nights. So that's my concern. I'm not trying to park in front of my house every time. Sometimes I can't stay within the 2-block radius because it's so congested. So that was just the point I wanted to make.
2-block, thank you for bringing up the 2-block radius. Miss Monroe, I do have a question about parking procedures so I can understand this. Thank you for coming back up. I know I like to be back of the class too. All right, so 2-block radius, how is that enforced in an area that's not linear? I mean, this is not a linear area. Exactly. It's kind of a rounded area. So how do you enforce? And plus, it's not like there's a circumference around it. There's water. So, right?
So in this area, basically you're given your permit, you're told what your 2 blocks radius is. Do you have any questions about that? I will just say that in this area, there are likely people that are skirting the permitting process. We don't know how many that will be, but there are likely some. So that could increase the number of permits that we have on this block, but we just don't know what that is. So it may also not change because we have multi-family units there that are permitted, we believe, to a full amount, but potentially not. So how is that enforced? I guess the best way that it is enforced is we have zones within our LPR unit. And if you are over the 2-hour time period in any zone, they can look up your permit and see if you're within your zone. So I think that's the easiest answer.
Okay, so it's zones, and so they're told the 2 blocks that they can go to when they get the permits. And I do remember, let's see, I lived there, I'm trying to think the years. 2005, 6, 7, 2005, 6, 7, somewhere around there is when I lived there. And I think I'm remembering the history about those spots. I think those spots were up there back when I lived there, and those along Washington Avenue as it curved around. I think those spots were there. People park there. People definitely park there. Put your mic on there, Councilor Ribelowski.
People may have parked there, but they didn't have ticks on it to make it look like an official parking
So
spot.
it wasn't official. And so I think that, and I just wanted to find out, it sounds like we have the capacity on that block to have more parking permits than we have spots. So I guess the answer is that they have the 2-block radius. If everybody gets a residential parking pass, they have a 2-block radius where that's where the overflow would go to. So that's how that makes sense. And Anna wants to clarify, or Vice President Mockler wants to clarify something for me.
It could just be Veep. That's really short.
Veep.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the 2 blocks, so free parking was offered to the residents of Lower Washington Avenue at the Washington Avenue garage. Is that what someone said?
So I want to make sure that you're not taking my time, but I thought you were clarifying.
Oh, no, I wanted to make a comment.
Okay. And I think that it was.
I'll wait until you're done.
It was at a discounted rate was offered at the parking garage.
Correct.
Only during construction.
Correct. Only.
Okay. Okay. City Attorney Fennell, is this a breach of quorum to kick this back to finance parking investment at this point in time?
Generally, no, except that this is not something that's being brought forward by the administration. And so since President Coughlin, are you on those committees? I'm sorry.
He is not.
Yeah,
No,
so
I'm not.
it wouldn't really, he wouldn't be able to go and advocate for it, and it's his proposition. Does that make sense? So it would just be there being discussed. We could go back to study session though.
Or to study session. Okay. I propose, my personal feeling is that this should go back to study session rather than a vote, because I don't want to do a disservice of deciding right now when it feels like there's still some conflicting feelings about it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close my comments. Let's do one other round, and then I'm going to do a temperature check on this. But my personal preference is to kick this back to another study session. That way, hopefully, we'll have Chair Goodnow, and then also Eric Younger, who's also on Finance, Parking, and Investment, to weigh in on it, and who has not been part of this discussion at all. Veep.
I move to postpone resolution number 3387 to a future study session within 30 days. Is that accurate, Angela? Has to be within 30 days? Okay, good check. Okay, so I move to postpone resolution number 3387 for a 30-day period to be brought back to study session or to finance committee as the council president shall determine.
I'd like to second that, since I just made that proposition. I'm going to second that, and let's have a discussion on this particular idea. So, Vice President Mockler, let's speak on your support of postponing.
Well, I did not want to pass this, but I could not see any other way. Councillor Goodnow has pointed out that Impark does in fact work for us, and that if asked to actually enforce in a more rigorous manner, that they could do so. My concern is, I think, shared by all of these residents, which is that is not going to work between 4:30 p.m. and 8:30 a.m. So I would like to look at that, and I'd like to get data on exactly how many parking permits will be needed by the residents of this block. Because we don't have that data now, and I'd like to get it so that we could compare it to the 44 possible spots. Like if there are 2 permits per unit, usually there are visitor passes in addition to that. So I'd like to get all of that information rather than trying to accomplish it on the fly at 20 minutes to 8.
Since I seconded, I'm going to go ahead and just speak. You guys already heard me propose that. I would like to have the other members of Parking, Finance, Investment weigh in on this. That's all I'll say on that. I'm going to go ahead and defer to Goodnow and then Robolowski.
I think things that I would
now. Apologies.
Okay. Things I would like to see is I would love to see the new drawings, the city drawings for the actual spaces that are there, because I'm looking at these old photos and aerial views, and I'm like, oh, look at all that parking. So I want to make sure we're looking at something real. So I get my head around like, oh, I pull down here, these are all taken. Now I'm driving down and going around, and then where? Now I'm outside of my 2 block. So I'd really like to see that. And then definitely interested in sort of when I asked how many permits, I wasn't looking for current permits. I was looking for that number of how many eligible permits could be issued in that area. And then lastly, if we can get any kind of LPR is the license plate reader, if we can ask Impark to pull any data or to make some runs through there, because I'd like to see what the problem is, because nobody here would do this, but there are people who will find ways to abuse the permit system, and they will let people use those permits and those other, whether it's the temporary one or the actual one to do that. So we just want to really make sure we get this right for you guys. So I think that's all I wanted to, that would be helpful for me next time we talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Goodnow. Councilor Robolowski.
I'd like to see if, I definitely want it to go back to a study session, but I would like some advice from Ms. Monroe if we could make a parking zone that after 3 o'clock, it'd be residents only and maybe not weekends, but I don't think we should go 24/7 on any public street. So I'd like her to look into that to see if that's possible.
So does Ms. Monroe need to, she doesn't need to come up now and answer
No.
that? Okay, thank
By
you.
study session.
Counselor Coughlin, and then Counselor Fry, do you have something to add to it? Okay, Counselor Coughlin, then I think we'll do a little vote on this, on the amendment.
I'll just keep it brief that, I respect the council's concerns here. I think there's a bit of overthinking going on. This, this was a concern the residents raised. We worked with our expert staff member. This was the solution that was presented. This was the solution the expert staff member said would work. There are 44 spaces on there. They are not specifically marked as designated. They're not, spray painted on there. There's no specific markings, but there's up to capacity for 44. There's definitely more than 44 cars in the street that belong to residents. So it will be used. It's desperately needed. Anyway, I'm gonna ask that you just pass it now, but if you're gonna vote no on it, then I prefer you go back to study session to consider it further. But I just request just pass it tonight. I think this is pretty simple.
So I think we're gonna go ahead and take a vote on the motion to postpone
And this would be a motion to postpone.
for study session,
Study session.
not to kick it back to
Okay. Are
committee.
we going to select that date of the study session? We say within 30
Oh, yeah.
days. We have a study session on October 8th. Right? Is that right?
We actually
Or is it
don't have one on October 8th. We have one on October 9th.
9th?
Yeah. Let's make, you know what, y'all? Ms. Monroe, would you be prepared to come to a study session next week? I'd like to just come back next week and do it. Yep,
So
next week,
September 25th?
September 25th.
Okay.
It's important to the residents, so let's get it done.
Okay. So to postpone for the study session on September 25th. So for this amending motion, Robolowski,
Yes.
good now?
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
No.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion to postpone
Okay.
passes.
And so there's no need to, what do we do for the other motion that's on the table now for voting? It's just dead because we postponed?
Correct.
Okay, so that one is dead, so we have postponed. We're gonna do this next week and try to get this done right as soon as possible. So I think with the absence of information, a lot of us might have voted no tonight, but let's see what happens next week, okay? And so, and we'll have hopefully our other council member available next week. So we will now go to council reports. Thank you to all who stayed. First up, this is an opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues or events taking place in their district, announce any events they've recently attended or plan to attend, or speak on any other city-related topic. And since it's the first council meeting of the month, we'll start with District 2, Council Member Denise Fry. I know, but the first is me and I get to be last, so.
I've got just one slide. Yeah, I
You know
think
what?
it is. I was a little confused there. Yeah.
Okay, that is correct. And this is what happens when you just read a script. You're just in autopilot. Fine, we're gonna flip it. District 6, Vice President Anna Mochler, you're up first. Let's do it.
I did not get my slides in time to show you Mike Riley talking to my town hall about the budget in the closest approximation to plain language that I have ever seen a budgetary person do. Kudos to Mr. Riley. Getting better and better in every day in every way. So here I'm just going to respond to some events that have been happening in the community over the past few months. Ready? So, council, we are here to represent the people, and then once we're elected, yeah. So
Please continue.
I will. I'm going to now. Once we're elected, we talk to staff more than we do to constituents. So it's really easy to think that staff is our audience, that they are who we work for. We are here to work for the people we represent. Elected officials are here to work for the people they represent. We're here to keep an eye on the bosses, as a street sweeper once told a colleague. That's the job the city charter gave us, that the voters gave us, to do oversight. I mean, really, who likes somebody looking over their shoulder? And yet that's our job. So that was really it, that if we keep focusing on who we're here to represent, that we can't go too far wrong in our actions, as long as we're focusing on what will serve the residents of Bremerton. Thank you.
Thank you. District 5, Michael Goodnow.
Yeah, I have no report tonight.
Okay. District 4, Jane Robolowski.
I have some slides, I think.
So, we need your mic on, and for more than just the laugh that I just made at the picture.
Yeah, interesting vehicle. So after tonight's passage of the ordinance to eliminate any parking in marked bike lanes, the mayor is directing staff after the 10 days of publication, which will be this Friday. They will take down the signs that say loading zone, and they'll put up delineators so nobody can park in that cutout. And eventually, when we have money, we'll repair that curb line, but it's not really needed with these new improvements. So, and I want to give a special thanks to Adam Durrell, who sent in over 400 photos of people who decided that they would park there as long as they wanted. And to Naomi Levine, who put together a wonderful video, even though there were people who were concerned about rights to a Queen song, but it made its point. So thank you. Next slide, please. So the Peninsula Dance Company has their event space in my district. And I was thrilled because I was able to purchase a very limited ticket for their auction. They may have a few left. They were only printing, I believe, 100. But their season opener, dinner, and auction will be Saturday, September 28th. And I believe that's at the conference center. But we're very excited to see them moving forward with their new season. Next slides, please. There's the dinner and auction, live performances. So the next, I went to this fantastic conference in Tacoma, the Walk, Bike, and Roll Conference, got to meet all kinds of advocates for all sorts of things to help keep pedestrians and cyclists safer in our community. And as we know, especially this community is getting younger, and we have lots more people on bicycles and out walking, and we have a lot of people using electric bikes and people who've moved to town with no vehicle at all, hence the lack of parking in some places. So Monday, September 30th through Sunday, October 6th, and this is nationwide, it's a week without driving. And I understand this challenge can't be met to the letter by everybody or even by most. But part of it is thinking about every time you decide you want to go somewhere, if you didn't have the ability to drive or the ability to own a vehicle, how would you get there? Could you ride a bus? Could you walk? Could you call a ride share? Would you have to stay home? So that's part of the challenge, is just to really spend that week thinking, and if you can, don't drive so much. So that is the end of my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. District 3, Counselor Jeff Coughlin.
Thank you, Council President. Start off by thanking Councilor Rebolowski, not for some certain things, but for this leadership on this ordinance to ensure our bike lanes stay protected. Thanks to Councilor Mockler as well for joining this proposal and for hashing it out and all the hard work. But no, thank you, Councilor Rebolowski, for leading this. I was proud to join you on this one. I think we crafted a great ordinance that's viable throughout the city. Hopefully solve this particular issue that has just been going on for so long and has not been solved. So I'm glad that we were able to come up with a solution to fix this. And I also wanted to, back to the mayor's report, great to hear about some extra attention to Lower Road Vista Park. I know that's been a park residents in my district have seen as a potential gem, and it's just had some maintenance issue over the years. So I'm glad to see that there's getting more maintenance down there. And then to my slides, want to make sure people know this tomorrow on 6th Street, Active Transportation Improvement Project, a virtual presentation online. Definitely come speak up. Really excited and really grateful to Public Works, especially Nick Atai, for this project and bringing forth some alternatives, and great to see this move forward. Next slide. Just a kudos to Parks Department. The fall newsletter came out. Really great to see the new Quincy Square mural as the cover. And just if folks aren't aware, this is a great publication, not only what's going on in the Parks Department, a reminder that Bremerton residents can get free vouchers to the YMCA pool since it is a partially city-owned facility. And also it's highlighting on the first page all the great events coming up downtown in my district, including Trick or Treat on October 31st and Magic and Manette Winterfest Fest, and of course Krampusnacht. So look forward to a great winter. And I think just one last slide. And Bridging Bremerton, as the mayor said, September 21st, this Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. at Evergreen Pizza Company, walking the whole Bridge to Bridge Trail with so many great improvements in the works along that entire area, so many that have already happened. So come on out, fingers crossed for good weather, but we live in the Northwest, we'll walk no matter what. And that's it for me, thank you.
Now, finally, District 2.
Last but not
Counselor, well, not
Oh,
last,
true.
but
true.
second to last.
Just keep that slide up, please. Or, oh, hey, I may only have one, but it's
District 2,
bigger.
Counselor Fry.
Yeah. Josh Farley is the instigator behind this. And yeah, you can change the name. He's got volunteers involved, you know, to clean up along the paths, and it's a fun day. It really is. And the people that come out for this, a lot of families, older, younger, there's a lot of story that gets told along the way. And I'm looking forward to it again this year. So I hope that you all can come out, meet us down at Evergreen Pizza at 10. And then paella, I hear there's going to be paella. And I wanted to give a shout out to Public Works. Every time I drive around this community, I'm seeing our trucks out there, you know, doing good work. And today it happened to be on my street. And I just want to give a shout out. I love seeing them. I wish I had chocolate bars in my house. They don't last long enough for me to give them out to people on the streets. But please pass that along. Really appreciating all the love that you're showing to our roads and sidewalks and getting our kids safe on the way to school. So thanks. Feeling very grateful.
Thank you. And finally, me representing District 1. Last and possibly least, but hopefully not. I do have a couple slides today. So there is a presentation on Friday, and it's sponsored by the Washington Recovery Alliance Salish Recovery Coalition, which, as you know, is one of our agencies that we support, the Kitsap Public Health District and Olympic College. Addiction isn't choice, compassion is. So basically, it's a story about addiction. And so there's a lot of special guests that appear in this movie, but also appearing in person. We'll have Representative Tara Simmons, Representative Greg Nance, and Representative Lauren Davis, who is featured in the film. There'll be resource tables and food for those who pre-register. Parking is available and free throughout the event. So it's going to be at the William Harvey Theater. So it's Building 7, I believe the Arts Building. And doors open at 5, film screening at 6:15. And that's this Friday, the 20th. And then the next slide is, hey, look at this. It's time for the Warren Avenue Bridge cleanup. Something that we did approve in our consent agenda is I believe our ILA with this very program that we sponsor, that sponsors the cleanup program, the Kitsap County Litter Program, meeting at Cafe Perfetto this Saturday, the 21st at 8:30 a.m. The cleaning starts at 9 o'clock. Come get a free cup of coffee, a free donut, and a free t-shirt. Look at all these great sponsors. The next cleanup events will be October 19th and November 16th. And then they do stop for the season because it is a little miserable outside. I believe that's all I have. That's the end of my report as well. So what we're going to do here, we are going to go for an executive session where action is anticipated pursuant, and I hope that the numbers are correct, pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I. We're going to take 20 minutes for this pending litigation executive session. We'll come back and take action. But before the 20 minutes, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. We're going to take a 10-minute break, which means we're going to come back and take action at 8:30. Thank you.
Recording stopped.